Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Namaduhu wa nasalli ala Rasulil Kareem. Viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This video is about two verses of Surah Naml, which is chapter 27. And the verses are verse 81 and verse 91. So first I'll read the translation of these verses, and then I will read the translation by the Ahmedi Qadiani scholar Muhammad Zafarullah Khan, and then translation by Muhammad Asad of the same verses, and you can see for yourself the difference in the translations. Here's a translation of this verse, 81. And you cannot guide the blind away from their error. You will only make hear those who believe in our verses, so they are Muslims. The Quran is using the word Muslimun. Compare this translation with the translation of Muhammad Zafarullah Khan. According to his translation, he writes, "Nor canst thou guide the blind out of their error. Now thou canst only make only those to hear who believe in our signs, for they submit." He takes out the word Muslim from the translation. Muhammad Asad is doing exactly the same thing in his translation. He writes, just as thou canst lead the blind of heart out of their error, none canst thou make hear save such as are willing to believe in our messages and thus surrender themselves unto us. These translations use language which is too broad and could arguably include Ahmedis, Jews, and Christians, whereas the Quran does not mention that. The Quran is very specific with regards to the people who are mentioned in the verse are Muslims, and both these translators take that out as they have been doing which have been mentioned in the previous videos. So this is another example how these translations are not accurate and change the message of the Quran. Then the other verse that I want to mention is the same surah, this Surah Naml, which is chapter 27, and the verse is verse 91, which the translation is, "Say, O Muhammad, I have only been commanded to worship the Lord of this city, who made it sacred and to whom belongs all things. And I am commanded to be of the Muslims," that is, those who submit to Allah. The Quran uses the word Muslim, is very specific. It's not broad, it's not general. It doesn't include people who do not consider themselves to be Muslims, like the Ahmedis, like the Christians and the Jews. But the translations of the Qadiani translator would not give you that impression. The translation by the Qadiani scholar, or the Ahmedi translator, Muhammad Zafarullah Khan, is, "Proclaim, I am commanded to worship the Lord of the city, which he has made sacred, and to him belongs all things, and I am commanded to submit wholly to him." This doesn't say what the Quran is saying. The Quran is specifically mentioning the word Muslim, and this verse, this translation, is so general that people who are not Muslims might think it could apply to them also, which would obviously change the message of the Quran. Muhammad Asad makes the same mistake. In his translation, he writes, "Say, O Muhammad, I have been bidden to worship the sustainer of this city, him who has made it sacred, and unto whom all things belong, and I have been bidden to be of those who surrender themselves to him." He has omitted the word Muslim from the translation, which is mentioned, which the Quran specifically says, the word Muslim, Muslimun. So readers, people who are reading the translations should be very careful when they're reading translations by translators like Muhammad Asad or Muhammad Zafarullah Khan. They will not find the word Muslim in the translation. They will see very broad language, general language, which could arguably include others who are not Muslims. Wa akhir dawana in alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.